Russia is facing a political transition. Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier appointed a new prime minister, Dmitry Medvedev, and his cabinet abruptly resigned after Mr. Putin proposed a number of constitutional changes. So what does the change of government mean for Russia investments? And after the Phase 1 trade deal between China and the U.S. was signed, what does this tell Russian businessmen? What's the future of China-Russia cooperation? Earlier, on the sideline of World Economic Forum, I talked to Kirill Dmitriev, the CEO of Russian Direct Investment Fund. Let's listen in. We see each other everywhere. It means you are having your investment around the world. But tell me more about your latest situation domestically first. A change of government, what does that mean for investment and investment plans?
Well, we had previous governments that did lots of work to stabilize microeconomy of Russia. So our inflation is very low, our debt of government is very low, so we have a very good foundation. But now we have a government that I will call a breakthrough, results-oriented government, that is tasked with really improving the growth of Russian economy. We need to have growth of more than 3%, not 2% we currently have. It's a government that is chaired by Prime Minister Mishustin, who has had great successes in his previous work as Minister of Tax Authority, and he really brought lots of innovation and technology.
From 2% to 3%, that's a huge jump, shall I suggest that way. How is that likely to be done?
Well, first of all, by really executing, we have our national project agenda, which is lots of projects in infrastructure and healthcare and others, where government is spending quite a bit of money, but we want to make sure that this money is spent efficiently, and those projects produce results that are good for the people, and also some of the money we bring from our foreign partners, from our domestic co-investors. So we are talking about a massive investment program that needs to be efficient.
But you know, last time I checked with you, also same thing have been said and illustrated, that why should we believe this time it's going to be different?
Well, first of all, from last time we saw, Russia has had great successes. So our stock market is up 55%. Our foreign direct investment is more than doubled in the last year. We had massive inflow of foreign money into our debt. So we have really a turning point where West tried to isolate Russia from capital markets, tried to have Russia fail. But Russia did not fail. Through strong Russia, through partnership with China, we did very well. And now, as a new government, we'll really drive efficiency forward. Because frankly, you know, the difference between people who are results-oriented and get results and people who just talk. We want to have lots of results-oriented people in the government, and ourselves, you know, we invested more than $5 billion into top Russian projects last year, with very good positive return of more than 15% for our partners. So we continue to build great global partnership, and China is one of our key partners.
Talking about efficiency and China-Russia, this is what I really want to ask you. People have been wondering about the efficiency of some of these cooperation projects. They are great in content. However, what about moving them forward? To what extent can we see those projects shine, particularly to catch up with the really good political relationship between the two countries?
Sure. I think we have a good foundation. For example, we have a great partnership with Alibaba. So we are jointly building Alibaba business in Russia, and we'll announce soon additional payment system joint venture with Alibaba and some of our partners.
How big is that investment?
So the total investment, you know, is hundreds of millions of dollars just from our side. But the whole business of Alibaba is quite significant in Russia, and Russian side, us and our partners, we have control. But we need to do much more. And we want to have more of Chinese banks participating in the Russian economy. We believe that China can do much more in infrastructure, because so far it invested a little bit in petrochemical project, a little bit in one of our LNG terminals. But we want to have much more Chinese investment. So our joint Russia-China fund facilitated $7.5 billion of joint investments. But we believe that this number can triple and quadruple. And for that, Chinese business people need to pay more attention to the Russian market, needs to see the 55% growth in our market, and need to understand that now, with the new government, Russian growth agenda is going to be significant and successful.
But exactly is the uncertainty that a lot of the business people are concerned about. I mean, Russia is a great potential market and great potential grower. However, at the same time, a lot of uncertainty. Change of government could be one of those. Davos.
Yeah, but change of government is a great move because, frankly, people wanted to have governments that's more focused on their needs.
Yeah.
And President is really implementing this change very quickly, very successfully.
All right.
So Russia, I think, in the world where U.S. is a bit unstable, where Europe is having lots of difficulties, where there is trade war between U.S. and China, little truce right now, but we know that over the long term there will be lots of tension. Russia, we believe, is a stable, predictable place with lots of potential.
Okay, here's one thing that's going on in the world, the Middle East now. There have been so much latest development, to say the least. Russia certainly has a big role in the region, and probably increasingly so. So, Kirill, according to your plan, where is the Middle East in Russia's sovereign investment overseas?
Yeah, so first of all, Russia does play a huge geopolitical role. You know, we came to Syria, we stabilized Syria, and now in the conference on Libya, Russia really played a big role. We had a great partnership with Saudi Arabia to stabilize oil prices. The President just visited Saudi Arabia and UAE in very historical visits. So Russia really wants Middle East to be stable. Unlike the US, who likes to change governments in lots of countries and then have terrible consequences, like you see in Iraq, like you see in Libya. The whole rise of ISIS came from toppling the government in Iraq. Russia doesn't want to topple anybody. It wants to build partnerships and build prosperity.
So what about investment opportunities and the plans?
We have more than $5 billion invested in Russia by Saudi Arabia and UAE in the last 3 years. And we believe our partnership enables us to really bring lots of technology companies to the Middle East. Recently, we invested in a major satellite image analysis company that is now going to play a big role in the Middle East. In face recognition companies, it's going to play a big role in the Middle East. So we have geopolitical partnerships in the Middle East, energy partnership, and investment partnership in the Middle East.
China and the United States just signed the first phase 1 trade deal. You already also mentioned about that. But how do you see the relationship and the nature of relation between China and the United States from your perspective?
Well, first of all, I think the signing of this interim deal is a good step for the world economy. It's very positive, but I think long-term the tensions will persist because the U.S., frankly, wants to be the dominant player in the world. It's very difficult for U.S. to recognize that China can be the #1 player in the world. So we believe the tensions will persist. Meantime, Russia is quite interested to be a good partner of China. We have lots of great projects. And again, we believe that it's very important for countries to find win-win scenarios.
Yeah.
It's not always win-lose. And we hope also that U.S. and China find their long-term partnership going forward, and this solution we just had interim continues for a longer period of time.
China-U.S. economy combined together is only 40% of the global GDP. There are 60% others around the world. Russia certainly is part of that. So where do you see Russia in this China-U.S. interesting time, Kirill, and what does that mean for your investment?
Well, Russia, again, is, believes that trade needs to happen, investment needs to happen, so we are not really taking sides. I think it's very important for U.S. and China to figure out their way forward. I think we believe that free flow of trade, free flow of investment, lack of protectionism is something that will move forward the world economy. And we hope that the U.S. would also understand it, that rather than just pressuring other players, it's important to find win-win scenarios. But frankly, President Trump's policies have been very successful so far. U.S. economy is doing the best ever. But I think for it to continue to do the best ever, it needs to have also a good way forward with China.
Now, 2020 is going to be a big year for a lot of countries. Russia also, for emerging economies as well. So what role do you think investment will be able to play to beat this bridge among the emerging economies and also linking the economic development with the security in the region?
Yeah, well, we believe emerging markets is a place to invest. And right now is a good time for emerging markets because lots of countries up and coming, Brazil is doing much better. Overall, emerging markets showed 14% growth last year in their public markets. As I mentioned, Russia showed 55. So there is an opportunity to invest more, but I think investors need to demand rules of transparency, rules of predictability from different emerging nations.
Yes.
And Russia provides this stability, and Russia provides this focus on good return for investments.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we produce 10 returns in dollars for our partners ever since the fund was founded. And I think at the end of the day, emerging markets can show good returns, and Russia will continue to show good returns to investors.
Always a pleasure seeing you
Thank you
anywhere
so
in the
much.
world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
The digital economy has no doubt revolutionized the Chinese market. No wonder people are now working on introducing innovative development models to Africa. Alibaba is one of them. In 2019, Alibaba launched the Africa Entrepreneur Prize Initiative, trying to identify top entrepreneurs from across the continent, not only to reward them, but to inspire a whole new generation of potential game changers for Africa. Earlier, I sat down with Brian Wong, the Vice President of Global Initiatives at the Alibaba Group. He shares with me how new digital economy models are shaping the African market and the role of artificial intelligence and technology in a new era. Let's listen in. Brian Wong, what a pleasure to have you here in Davos.
Thank you.
You've been helping entrepreneurs, young ones coming from Africa, to be able to nurture their market and going global. Tell me more about what Alibaba has been doing about this.
Thank you, Wei. What you've described is a fairly new initiative that Alibaba has been pursuing, really to share the lessons from our experience of the last 20 years about the digital economy. We believe that there is a new development paradigm that's really emerged thanks to digital technology, e-commerce, payments, logistics, and we really want to share that with the rest of the world, particularly emerging markets.
Yeah, and a lot of African young people actually are benefiting from the program. Tell me one or two of the case studies.
Well, we really, through our program called the eFounders Fellowship in partnership with the United Nations, we've developed a program where we bring the ecosystem builders or digital ecosystem builders from Africa to Hangzhou to show them what technology has done to create a more inclusive economy.
What is the ecosystem builder? Ecosystem builder.
Think of it as something like a e-marketplace, maybe a payments platform using mobile phones, even smart logistics.
I see.
So we've had probably in Africa close to 160 of these fellows, so to speak, who are building amazing businesses around agriculture-related initiatives, payment platforms, even delivery services that utilize mobile apps and enable people to access services and products that whenever possible. One great example is an individual who works with farmers, and farmers can actually get market information using a feature phone by sharing data on their crop sort of planning, which is then combined with other sort of more public data and allows them to sort of predict the yield.
Sounds cool. Which country is this?
This is in Rwanda. And as a result of this data, they're able to actually access microloans.
Wow.
And so if you think about a country that doesn't have the most sophisticated sort of network system, they don't have the most sophisticated phones, yet they still have basic access to this information. These entrepreneurs are able to provide a whole group of individuals, in this case the rural area, to access capital that would never have been possible.
They already leapfrog in a way.
Yes. Yeah,
That's the fascinating part of it,
Yes.
isn't it? Tell me more about these examples. They're really fascinating.
Well, another example we have is a young woman who has created a shoe business, and she uses recycled materials to create these shoes, but she sells online. She not only sells successfully within Rwanda and in the region, but also globally. Her name is Kevin, and she was actually featured at Jack's recent Netrepreneur Awards event in Ghana, which we held, the first of a whole series that we will hold for 10 years. as a commitment to celebrate African entrepreneurs' success. So these are some of the examples.
So what have you noticed about that entrepreneur spirit in these African young people?
Well, you know, I think what Jack and all of us recognize is this strong drive and passion to create something that will really impact society. These are entrepreneurs, yet at the same time their mindset is really, how do I create something of value to help the larger community? This isn't that different from this year's Davos theme, which is really stakeholders for cohesive and sustainable sort of development. And I know also there was an announcement about this Davos Manifesto 2020. It's not that different from what Alibaba has believed from day one, that we should create a business that actually creates value not only just in the market, but also for the larger community.
Right. You know, I earlier got a chance to talk to Jack.
Yes.
Off the record, of course.
Okay.
But here's something he told me, which I'm very impressed. He said, we are not trying to make any money out of any of the things that you just mentioned above. And he said, as long as we have the honor to participate, we are already blessed. That's what he told me. Maybe not exact quote, but exactly what you have trying to say. But you know, one of the things is stakeholder interest this time discussed a lot at this year's World Economic Forum. But many wonder whether it's too little, too late, or whether it's the old wine in a new bottle. What's your take?
Well, look, I don't think we really have much of a choice in today's world, given the situation with climate change, given the wealth and disparity that's growing and becoming even worse. What we need to do is figure out how to address these global issues as a global community. And so I think it's time now that we had this new manifesto. It's been reflected in other groups, such as the Business Roundtable announcement in the United States, that businesses have a greater obligation not just to themselves and their shareholder value, but also to the larger community. And if we don't actually take action, I think that the consequences will be quite dire.
But you know, on the other hand, technology is really one of the areas that businesses have to handle these days vis-a-vis society. Artificial intelligence is just one of those, and it is transforming the labor market.
Yes.
And as we speak, jobs might be lost as a result of the application of artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
I'm saying the technology is good.
Yeah.
Let's make great advantage of it.
Yeah.
But the other thing is how to take care of the other side of the story. Now, Alibaba is well known for pushing new technologies regarding e-commerce and some of the others into the industry.
Yes.
What about that part? I mean, this is something close to what you're doing. What about this part?
Well, look, I think job creation and what happens to existing jobs is a valid concern. I think the rate of change that takes place with this fourth industrial revolution will be faster than past ones. But I will say that to date, since the first industrial revolution till now, there's always been concerns around this sort of phenomenon.
Well, yeah, but it does not excuse us about not to have concern about the current one.
So my point on this is that we need to be cognizant of this, and this is exactly why we're investing so heavily in capacity building and skills development in not only China, where we've done massive programs to help those not only in the cities but also in the rural areas, and even within the government to help the government understand what is the impact of the digital economy on the larger society. So in the case of China, we've deployed tens of thousands of training programs, both in cities and rural areas. And as a result, we've seen the creation of about 54 million jobs that are the result of this digital ecosystem development. In rural areas in particular, 6.8 million jobs has been created and over close to $100 billion in turnover. Now think of the wealth creation that this provides for areas that did not have access to the mainstream economy. So how do you take that same model and apply it to the rest of the world? How do you engage farmers, those, youth, women, even those who are disabled, to become part of this digital economy? And I would venture to say that you might lose some traditional jobs in the process due to AI and robotics and whatnot, but you're going to create higher value jobs. And this technology should enable, and the training should enable these younger people and even those who are presently working in the system to upscale and upskill their abilities.
You know, the global risk report put forward by the World Economic Forum this year has identified the big power rivalry as one of the biggest risks facing the world today, including for businesses. So how do you, from a global mechanism perspective, you are doing with Alibaba, see this threat, this challenge?
Well, I think this global power rivalry is something which is inevitable in terms of people's concerns, but I think that I would hope that people can look beyond this short term and think about what are the implications if we don't get along, if the countries don't work together, and if we do not work together to develop technologies to address the bigger issues like climate change, like wealth inequality, like disease. So it's time that we stop bickering over the small things and start focusing on the big things, because as a humanity, we need to address this issue.
Technology for good, that's always a topic, but do you think it is too far away still from us? What about the choices when it comes to making profits vis-a-vis so-called moral issues?
I don't think it's too soon. I think it's really a mindset. Do you believe it's possible? And then you start to act in the way that you want it to become. And then the reality will come into existence. And so I think, no, we should, when we talk about profits, it should not just be an economic conversation any longer. Our profits really relate to the bigger picture, which is exactly why I believe that this new manifesto makes all the sense in this day and age that we are living.
Brian Wong from Global Initiative Alibaba. That's all we have for today. If you'd like to see our program, try to find us on YouTube, World Inside CGTN. And then also you could find us on Twitter and Facebook account. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of the team, thanks for watching. Bye for now.